The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.
And thanks for sticking with us here on Market Talk, broadcasting at Commodity Classic 2024 in Houston, Texas, with our friends at the National Corn Growers Association here today. Krista Swanson with NCGA is still with us here for our markets segment. Joining us here in Houston right now as well, Ted Seifried with Zaner Ag Hedge. And I feel like this is becoming an annual thing here, Ted, that you break out the corn hat for Market Talk at Commodity Classic, buddy.
You know, So it is become kind of an annual tradition for me. And now doing the show with you is becoming an annual tradition, which I enjoy. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the corn hat barely made its debut this year. I wasn't really feeling great about corn when I got here. I had this hat and I had a cow hat. So I spent yesterday wearing the cow hat. But now I no longer have the said cow hat. So, and we're sitting at the National Corn Growers Association booth. So I figured it was a good time to break out the corn hat.
Well, I feel like in terms of this corn market, I know, we got below 4 on the board last Friday.
Yeah.
We've rallied back a little bit. I know fundamentals really still haven't changed in these markets, and you look at charts, but I mean, is there a little more optimism here in this corn market that maybe we're building a floor, so to speak? Ted, you start.
Well, Jesse, this is the biggest bounce we've had in corn since the beginning of the calendar year. That's I know we're 2 months into it, but man, and it didn't feel all that glorious, right? You hope for more. I think if you can close above Thursday's high, which is 432 in the May, there's a good shot at 452, another 20 cents. I don't really think fundamentals have changed enough to justify anything beyond that, but who knows? You get the funds covering shorts. Maybe it carries through. I don't know. But I think from a producer perspective, I've been talking to a lot of guys that say, I'm sitting on 60% old crop and I'm 0% sold on new crop. Well, if you get that additional 20 cents on top of what we saw this week, you got to jump on that. Unless we're in the middle of an absolute terrible drought with the second season Seifried corn crop, which in the moment, Jesse, that's not looking likely.
Yeah, no, it's not looking likely. Krista, your thoughts? I mean, do you think we're, to some of what Ted said, I mean, do you think we're finding a floor here potentially, and maybe we put that low into this corn market right now?
Well, Ted's more of the expert than me in terms of following those charts as thoroughly as he does. But I mean, I think that I guess I'll say as thinking about our growers, I think we're hopeful that is the case. Like Ted said, do we know? We'll see what pans out here in the coming weeks. But I mean, I think that there's some signs that could be possible. A lot of eyes are on what's happening in Brazil and South America right now. The Safrinha corn crop has been planted very quickly. I've seen some reports that part of the reason that's higher is because there's going to be fewer acres. So maybe that percent planted number is higher, but if it's out of a fewer number of acres. So I mean, I think that there could be some positive signs there, but also we can't necessarily rely on that happening. So a lot left to be seen in that regard.
It's just, I'm going to say it's a double-edged sword with the fast planting, right? We've seen in our history that generally when we plant fast, not only does it give us a good shot at a pretty decent yield, right? But also you get to plant as many acres as you can, and you find some extra acres. So I think that's a concern in the market that maybe we don't see that big reduction in Brazilian second season corn crop acres. But then, like I said, double-edged sword, go back to 2012. We planted historically fast that year. And then what, right? So I think there should be a reason. It's the time of the year for a weather premium in corn for that second season corn crop. It's just a question of, how much can we get on that? And can we really trigger the funds to get out of this record short position or at least a portion of it? And on the way up, if there is a way up, how much producer selling really offsets. Is this just going to be a change of hand of who's short the market, or can there be some legs under this?
Yeah, well, and thinking about this too, I look at, for instance, this soy complex and the wheat complex, and I think about getting ready for 2024 planting and the acreage discussion in the U.S. And, from both of your perspectives, I mean, could some of these shifting dynamics, I've felt like I've heard some questions from growers as to what they might plant here in 24 in the U.S. Could we see a big shift into acreage potentially? I think that's on the table to some degree. What do you think, Ted?
Yeah, I think I kind of felt the same way before coming here.
Okay.
But that being said, the conversations that I've been having for the last few days, man, we have some really nice weather to get some work done to get ready for this growing season. I think it's going to afford for more corn acres than what may have been thought about a month or so ago. And the optimism is still there, Jesse. I mean, yes, we don't love the prices that we're at. We're worried about being under our break evens. We're worried about that old crop. But I think most of the guys I talk to, who apparently don't listen to me, are very optimistic that we might see $5 corn again, in which case, let's go full bore. That being said, I do think there should be an acreage shift towards soybeans. I don't think it'll be huge. I think you gain a million and a half acres in beans, but I still think you're at a 92.5 or a 93 in corn.
Krista, what do you think? Do you, from what you're hearing from producers, do you think there could be a bit of an acreage shift here as we get set for 2024?
Yeah, my thoughts are kind of in line with what Ted has thrown out there. I mean, another thing to keep in mind is not only are we having some of this great weather right now for some field work, but also last fall allowed for a lot of field work to get done. And I heard some reports, especially in the Midwestern areas of the United States, that record anhydrous applications, to me, that doesn't align with like a major reduction in corn acres. And, a lot of farmers, you tend to hear when you talk to farmers, they tend to follow. Yes, they pay attention to market dynamics to an extent, but also the agronomic advantages and just general management advantages of a rotation tend to, also come into play. And so
Yeah.
I think those things can't be overlooked. And another point I'll make when we're thinking about corn versus soybean acres is the fact that, while soybeans, may pencil out to a little bit better right now, it's not like the difference in potential profit margins there are way greater to where there's just this clear shift.
Well, and I think too, it all comes back to demand, and part of, Krista, what we're talking about here on the show today is the demand for sustainable aviation fuel. And, Ted, we've talked about just demand in general across commodities and how, we have to have that demand out there to help drive these markets, right?
Yeah. And the thing for corn specifically has been, we've had good export sales, but up until very recently, the shipments have been very disappointing. And that really breeds concerns that, maybe a lot of those purchases that have come on the books more recently could eventually get canceled if that Seifried corn crop is good. Maybe there are hedges against that crop. But the last 2 weeks of corn shipments have been a lot more solid. So now I think that is one thing that you can kind of feel a little bit better in corn. I feel like that's part of the reason why we found some footing here this week. And if we can keep up with those good shipment weeks, I'm talking export inspections. Generally speaking, I'm a lot more focused on sales because you can't have shipments without sales. But at the moment for corn, I'm really watching the shipments, the export inspections number. If that stays good, I do wonder if there is a little bit more up. Like we talked about, 452 May corn. That's got a big circle on the chart for me.
How your thoughts, Krista? I mean, just that overall demand picture. Do you agree with Ted with some of those things that you're watching, or do you have another perspective on where demand kind of sits right now?
Yeah, no, Ted makes some good points that the export inspections are a key number. I will say, though, when we look at the sales, we this marketing year has been a lot stronger so far than the past year. And I think we've seen some of those, traditional or, some of those other buyers, some other countries coming in with some good purchases here in this marketing year that, we hadn't had as much if we look back over the past year. So seeing some diversification versus China as as the largest and primary. So I think that we talked about diversification, not just of markets in general and the need for more domestic demand, but also among the different export buyers in the world market is important too.
Yeah, and we need those extra buyers because if you look at what China's done, they've really shifted their corn business to Brazil. They've imported more than 20 million metric tons of Brazilian corn so far this marketing year. China has imported a record amount of corn so far this marketing year, but again, from Brazil, our exports to China are a little bit over 8,000 metric tons. I'm sorry, 8 million metric tons compared to the 23 million metric tons they were 2 years ago. So we need these outside demand displacement, right?
Yeah.
We need other countries to be coming in for bigger shares or more to help offset that loss of Chinese business due to the Brazil business.
Very true. Very true. Ted, 30 seconds-ish. I think it's just important to be a smart marketer in this window, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Jesse. Hope is not a strategy. And everything we've talked about here in the last, 20 minutes is, I hope to see 452 corn. I hope to see May corn. I hope to see something just under $5 December corn. I think there are chances for these things. I think a number of things would have to really line up for that to happen. But you can't just expect it, right? So you have to be doing things. You have to be aggressive with your marketing right now. I mean, and synthetic puts has been sort of my key phrase here recently, which means you sell cash and then you own a call, a fairly inexpensive call, so that you can participate in upside potential if it happens, Jesse. But you have the downside locked in. You are no longer worried about how low corn can go because that is taken care of, and then you can sleep at night.
Definitely. Ted, thanks for jumping in here and talking markets at Commodity Classic. Always good to see you, buddy.
Man, always a pleasure. Love doing the show, especially live with you and also wearing a corn hat.
Definitely. Corn hat, Ted Seifried with Zaner Ag Hedge joining us, and Krista Swanson with the Corn Growers as well. And Krista's going to stick with us. We'll be back with more talking SAF here on Market Talk from Commodity Classic right after this.